If you've ever looked at your bank account and thought, I work hard, so why do I still feel behind? Today, you're going to hear a set of ancient money lessons that still work, right now, in the real world. And by the end, you'll have a simple plan you can actually follow. Picture this: a city of gold, hot sun on stone streets, merchants calling out prices, caravans arriving with spices and silk, and in the middle of it all, Babylon, the richest city in the world. Now, here's the twist. Babylon wasn't rich because it found magic. It was rich because it learned something most people never learn: how to keep money, how to grow money, and how to make money serve you instead of you serving money. Our story opens with two ordinary working guys. They're skilled, they're tired, they work hard with their hands, and they build real things. But no matter how much they earn, somehow, they never feel ahead. If that sounds familiar, keep listening. Because this book doesn't start with billionaires. It starts with regular people, trying to break the same cycle many of us are stuck in today. They live in Babylon, and they're frustrated. They talk the way people talk today, just with different words. One of them basically says, I make money, but it disappears. The other says, I work hard, but I still don't feel secure. They look around and see certain people living differently. Some men seem calm, some men seem free, some men have choices. And they ask the question that changes everything: why them and not us? So they decide to seek advice from the man known as the richest man in Babylon. His name is Arcad. Now, Arcad wasn't born rich. He wasn't a prince, or he wasn't lucky. He started as a normal young man with a normal job and normal problems. So when he teaches in a way that actually lands. And he doesn't preach. He tells stories. He gives principles that are simple, almost annoyingly simple, but they work. When the two men find Arcad, they ask him straight up, how did you become wealthy while we stayed stuck? Arcad doesn't shame them. He doesn't call them lazy. He basically says, I did one thing differently, and it changed everything. And the first lesson is the foundation of the whole book. It's not about how much you make, it's about what you keep. Let that settle for a second. In modern terms, you can earn a great salary and still be broke. You can also earn a modest salary and slowly build real wealth. Because wealth isn't built by income alone. Wealth is built by the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is your future. Arcad's first major principle is so simple, people underestimate it. He teaches a rule that can change your life if you actually do it, before you pay anyone else. Pay yourself, not in an Instagram quote way, in a literal way. If money comes in, a piece of it stays with you, not if there's some left, not after bills, first. Because if you wait, there will never be some left. Life expands, spending expands, convenience expands, and your future gets whatever scraps survive. So Arcad teaches a habit. Every time money hits your hands, you keep a portion. In the book, it's often described as a simple fraction, but the exact number matters less than the behavior. The behavior is this: you are no longer a person who spends everything. You are a person who keeps something. That identity shift is huge. Now, if you're listening and thinking, that sounds nice, but my bills are real. Good. That's honest. The book doesn't ignore that. It says something even more challenging. If you can't keep a portion now, you won't keep a portion later. Because if you get a raise, your spending will rise to meet it. A bigger apartment, a nicer car, more subscriptions, more convenience, more I deserve it. And somehow, still no peace. So step one is paying yourself first. And step two is where most people mess up. Because once you save something, you have to protect it. You have to stop your spending from swallowing everything else. The book calls this controlling your expenditures. We can say it like this: don't confuse needs with wants. That sounds obvious. But in real life, it's messy. Because wants show up wearing a need costume. A need can become a need because you're stressed, because you're tired, because you want to feel better for 5 minutes. And companies are very good at selling comfort. So Arcad teaches a simple lens. If you make more money, but your lifestyle grows just as fast. You stay trapped. Freedom doesn't come from more money. Freedom comes from money you don't need to spend. Here's the quiet power of that. If you can live on less than you make, you create margin. Margin is the space where your future gets built. Margin is where investments happen. Margin is where emergencies get handled without panic. Margin is where you stop relying on credit cards like oxygen. Margin is calm. Now, at this point, many people do the same thing. They save a little and then stop. They save a little and then spend it. They save a little and then feel stuck again. So the book moves to step 3. And step 3 is the part that turns savings into wealth. Make your money work for you. This is where Babylon gets interesting. Because Babylon wasn't rich just because people saved coins in a jar. Babylon was rich because people learned how to put money to work. Money is like a seed. If you keep seeds locked in a box forever, you never get a harvest. But if you plant seeds wisely, they produce more seeds. That's the whole game. Now, Arcad warns about something. He warns that not all opportunities are good opportunities. Just because someone has a confident voice doesn't mean it's safe. Just because someone says guaranteed doesn't mean it is. He teaches that money should go where it is protected and where it can grow. In modern terms, this is the difference between investing and gambling. And if you've ever been burned by a sure thing, you know exactly what he means. A friend says, "Trust me." A stranger says, "This is the next big thing." An influencer says, "This is how I got rich fast." And people throw money they couldn't afford to lose into something they don't understand. The book would call that one of the quickest roads back to being broke, because money that is not protected disappears. So Arcad teaches a practical rule. Don't invest in something you don't understand. And don't trust your savings to someone who gains when you lose. That principle is ancient and still painfully modern. Now, before we go deeper, let's slow down and make this real. Right now, in your life, what would paying yourself first actually look like? Not in theory, in real numbers. Maybe it's a small amount. Maybe it's a clean percentage. Maybe it's automatic, so you don't forget. Because willpower is not a plan. Systems are a plan. Here's a simple action you can take after this episode. Pick one day, one paycheck, one deposit, and do it once. Keep a portion, then do it again and again. You don't build wealth with one heroic move. You build wealth with a boring habit that doesn't break. Back to Babylon. Arcad doesn't just give principles. He tells stories that stick. And one of the most powerful stories in the book is about debt, because debt is the thing that makes people feel like they're working, but never moving. In the story, there's a man who looks successful. He has nice things. He appears comfortable, but behind the scenes, he's drowning. He owes money all over the city. And that kind of debt doesn't just hurt your wallet. It hurts your mind. It turns every day into pressure. So the book introduces a plan that's simple and surprisingly compassionate. It doesn't say, just suffer. It doesn't say, just disappear. It teaches a method to face your creditors and rebuild trust while still building a future. In modern terms, it's a structured repayment plan. Not panic, not shame, a plan. Here's the idea in plain language. If you're in debt, you can't give everything to debt, because then you starve and you collapse. And the debt wins anyway. So you split your income into 3 jobs. One job is survival. One job is paying debt steadily. And one job is building a tiny foundation so you don't fall back. Even while paying debt, you keep the habit of paying yourself first. Because if you don't, you'll pay debt for years and still have nothing at the end. That might sound controversial. But think about it. If you throw every dollar at debt, but keep living in chaos, one emergency puts you right back on the credit card. So the goal isn't just pay it off. The goal is escape the cycle. And cycles are broken by systems, not emotions. Now, this book has a very specific vibe. It's not a spreadsheet book. It's a wisdom book. It's trying to shape the kind of person you become, the kind of person who, Keeps a portion, spends with control, invests with care, and lives with a quiet confidence. And that confidence is the real reward. Not flashy wealth, not showing off. The kind of wealth where you sleep well. The kind of wealth where you're not scared of the mailbox. Not scared of the phone ringing. Not scared of one unexpected bill. Peace. Let's keep going, because our cod lays out what the book calls cures for a thin wallet. We've already covered the first three in spirit. Now the next one is about protection. Because the moment you start building savings, the world will test you. Life will test you, people will test you, and sometimes you will test yourself. So our cod teaches, guard your savings from loss. In modern life, this is huge. It means, don't tie your future to something fragile. Don't risk rent money. Don't chase quick profits. Don't ignore the fine print. It also means something deeper. You need protection from your own impulsiveness, because sometimes the biggest threat to your money is you on a bad day. Here's what guarding looks like today. It looks like an emergency fund. It looks like avoiding high-interest traps. It looks like being careful with who you trust. It looks like turning off the easy buy buttons when you're trying to build a future. It looks like saying not yet to things you can afford, but don't need. That's power. Then the book moves to a principle that surprises some people. Make your home a profitable investment. Now, in Babylon, that had a specific meaning. Today, it can mean different things depending on your life. But the deeper meaning is this: build stability in your living situation, so you're not constantly leaking money through chaos. Sometimes the most profitable move isn't a flashy investment. Sometimes it's lowering stress, lowering wasted spending, lowering forced decisions. Stability makes everything else easier. Next, the book speaks to the future. It teaches you to provide for your later years, because the future will arrive whether you're ready or not, and the saddest financial pain is when time runs out and there's no plan. So the book encourages building a stream of future income. In modern American terms, people often think of retirement accounts, long-term investing, building skills, building assets. But again, the book is focused on the habit. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. And then, our cod teaches one of the most underrated principles of all. Increase your ability to earn. This is not a hustle culture message. It's a self-respect message. Your earning power is one of your greatest assets. If you improve your skills, you increase your options. If you increase your options, you reduce fear. If you reduce fear, you make better decisions, and better decisions create wealth. So now we have a growing set of principles. Let's breathe and recap them in a simple modern way. 1. Keep a portion of what you earn, automatically, consistently, without drama. 2. Spend less than you make, and be honest about wants. 3. Put your savings to work, carefully, in things you understand. 4. Protect what you build. From scams, from risk you don't understand, and from your own impulses. 5. Build stability in your living situation. 6. Prepare for the future, on purpose. 7. Keep learning, keep improving, keep increasing what you can earn. That's the skeleton of the book. But the reason this book became famous isn't just the list, it's the stories. Because stories make lessons memorable, and one story in particular hits hard for a modern listener. The story of the man who is trapped by debt and chooses to rebuild. In that story, the man doesn't suddenly become rich overnight. He doesn't find a secret coin. He doesn't win a bet. He does something rarer than luck. He becomes disciplined. He faces what he owes. He tells the truth. He makes a plan, and he follows it. Month after month, he doesn't just fix his money, he fixes his character. And the book suggests that's why wealth finally sticks to him, because money sticks to people who can handle it. If you want a single-sentence version of that lesson, it's this: if you don't change the way you manage money, more money won't change your life. More money just makes your current habits louder. If your habits are strong, more money makes you freer. If your habits are weak, more money disappears faster. So the question becomes, what are your habits? And what would happen if starting this week, you practice the Babylon habits, even a little, even imperfectly. Now, the next section, the book introduces another major framework, the laws of gold. These are the rules that explain why money grows for some people and slips away from others. And when we walk through them, I'm going to translate them into modern everyday language, so you can actually use them. But before we do, take a second and picture your life 1 year from now. Not a fantasy life, a realistic life. If you consistently kept a portion of your income, controlled spending, paid down debt with a plan, and invested carefully. What changes? What stress disappears? What becomes possible? Hold that picture, because this isn't just about money, and it's about freedom. It's about dignity. It's about building a life where you don't feel trapped. All right, let's step back into Babylon and learn the laws of gold. The first law of gold is simple, and it's almost unfair. Gold comes gladly, and in increasing quantity, to the person who puts aside at least 1/10 of what they earn to create a future for themselves and their family. In modern language, money grows for the person who consistently saves, not the person who saves when it's convenient, not the person who saves once in a while, the person who builds the habit. Because consistency does something powerful. It turns saving from a decision into a default. And when saving becomes a default, your life starts to change quietly, but permanently. Now, the second law of gold goes one step further. Gold labors diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment. Meaning, your saved money shouldn't just sit there forever. It should be assigned a job. Now, let's be careful here. The book is not telling you to take huge risks. It's not telling you to chase the hottest trend. It's saying, if you want money to grow, it must be put to work in places where it can multiply. In Babylon, that might have meant lending to a merchant. In modern life, this could mean long-term investing, a well-researched business, skill building that increases income, or other wise choices. But here's the key. Wise owner, not emotional owner, not impulsive owner, wise. The third law of gold is one of the most important. Gold clings to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of people skilled in its handling. This is Babylon's way of saying, if you don't know what you're doing, get guidance from someone who does. But not just anyone. Someone skilled and trustworthy. Someone who benefits when you win, not when you lose. Because there's a difference between advice and sales. A lot of people in the modern world are not giving advice. They are selling. Let's say that plainly. If someone is pressuring you, if someone is promising guaranteed returns, if someone is rushing you, if someone makes you feel dumb for asking questions, that is not wisdom. That is a trap. The fourth law of gold is a warning that saves people from disaster. Gold slips away from the person who invests it in businesses or purposes with which they are not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keeping. In other words, if you don't understand it, don't put your money in it, because confusion is expensive. If you don't understand how the profit is made, if you don't understand what could go wrong, if you can't explain it in simple words, you're not investing, you're guessing. And guessing with your future is a brutal hobby. Now, the fifth law of gold is the most emotional. Gold flees the person who would force it to impossible earnings, or who follows the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers, or who trusts it to their own inexperience and romantic desires in investment. That phrase, romantic desires, it means the dream version of investing, the version where you imagine the best case and ignore the risks, the version where you fall in love with the idea, and you stop thinking clearly. This is what happens when people chase get rich quick, or when they invest because they want to feel smart, or when they invest because they're desperate. Gold can sense desperation, and it runs. So those are the 5 laws. And if you listen closely, they all point to the same truth. Wealth isn't built by luck. Wealth is built by behavior, and behavior is guided by character. Now the book shifts into stories that make these laws feel real. One story in particular is about a man who is drowning and then turns his whole life around. And this part matters because a lot of listeners hear money lessons and feel discouraged. They think, that's great for someone who's already ahead. But this story is for people who feel behind. There's a man in Babylon named Dabasir. And Dabasir's honestly a mess. He has debt everywhere. People are angry with him. He's avoided them. He's made promises he didn't keep. And because of that, he lives with constant fear. He's not poor because he doesn't work. He's poor because he has no system. He has no control, and life has been eating him alive. Now, Dabasir ends up in a harsh situation. He becomes a slave. And the book uses this as a symbol. Because debt can feel like slavery. Debt can make you wake up already tired. Debt can make you feel like your life belongs to someone else. But while he's in that low place, something changes. He meets someone who teaches him, not a magical trick, a plan, and that plan becomes his path back. Dabasir writes a letter explaining how he escaped debt and rebuilt his life. And his plan is simple. It has steps. It's not glamorous. It's not viral. But it works because it's realistic. Here's what he does. First, he decides to face the truth. No more hiding, no more avoiding. He lists what he owes. He stops pretending. Because you cannot defeat what you refuse to face. Second, he commits to paying himself first, even in debt, even with pressure, because he understands something crucial. If he sends every dollar away, he stays empty forever. And empty people fall back into the same trap. So he keeps a portion. That portion becomes his foundation, his dignity, his proof that he is rebuilding. Third, he chooses to live on a limited portion. He makes his lifestyle smaller than his income. He stops trying to look rich. He starts trying to become free. Because looking rich is expensive, but being free is priceless. Fourth, he negotiates with his creditors. This part is important. The book teaches that most reasonable people would rather get steady repayment than get nothing. So Dabasir goes to them with honesty. He says, I cannot pay it all at once, but I can pay consistently. And that changes everything. Because a plan builds trust. A plan replaces chaos. Now, in modern life, this lesson is powerful. If you're drowning in debt, the Babylon message is not feel ashamed. The message is stop hiding, build a system, pay yourself first, control spending, pay steadily, protect your progress, and you will climb out. Because debt is not just numbers. Debt is emotion. Debt creates panic. Panic makes you impulsive. Impulsiveness creates more debt. That's the loop. And the only way out is to replace panic with structure. Now, the book's next major lesson is about something we don't talk about enough. It's about luck. People love to say, I just need a lucky break. But Babylon's wisdom is different. It says, luck favors the person who is prepared. In the book, there's a story about a man who wants to become wealthy quickly, and he goes to someone skilled, hoping for a shortcut. But what he receives is not a shortcut. It's a reality check. He's told, money grows when you respect it, and money disappears when you chase it like a fantasy. That's such a modern lesson. Because our world constantly advertises fantasy. We see luxury. We see perfect lives. We see fast results. And we start thinking, if I just find the right hack, I'll leap ahead. But Babylon says, wealth is built by steady decisions, not dramatic ones. Now let's bring this back to you. If you wanted to apply Babylon's lessons starting today, you would need only a few simple behaviors. And I'm going to say them slowly. Because these are easy to hear and easy to skip. But if you actually do them, your financial life changes. 1. Keep a portion of what you earn, not later, not eventually, now. 2. Control your spending, not by misery, by awareness. You're not punishing yourself. You're choosing freedom. 3. Make your money work for you. Wisely, patiently, and not in a rush. 4. Protect what you build from scams or from impulsive risk, from romantic investing. 5. Increase your earning power, your skills, your value, your opportunities. Now, there's a line in the spirit of this book that feels like a slap of truth. A man's wealth is not in the coins he carries. It is in the income that his coins can earn. Meaning, it's not about showing money, it's about creating a system that produces money. That's real wealth. Now, I want to slow down and tell you something that the book implies, but modern life makes hard. If you start this journey, it will feel slow at first, because your old life has momentum. Your old spending habits have momentum. Your old mindset has momentum. And when you start saving, it can feel like, what's the point? This is tiny. But tiny is how everything starts. Seeds are tiny, and the person who mocks seeds never gets a harvest. So here's the mindset shift Babylon gives you. Stop focusing only on the amount. Focus on the habit, because the habit is the machine. The habit is what creates compounding. The habit is what builds identity. And identity creates destiny. Now we're going to move into the final stretch of this story. In this final section, I'm going to do three things. First, I'm going to translate Babylon's wisdom into a modern, simple plan you can actually follow in real life. Second, I'm going to give you the cleanest money rules summary in a way that sounds natural in narration. And third, I'm going to end with a strong, emotional closing that fits your channel and invites people to comment and share. But before we go there, let me ask you a question. If you could go back and teach your younger self one money habit, just one, what would it be? Because that answer is usually where your wisdom lives, and that's what this book is trying to give you, not guilt, wisdom. All right, welcome back. We've walked through the heart of Babylon's wisdom, not as a lecture, but as a lived philosophy. Now let's turn it into something you can actually use, because inspiration feels good, but a plan changes your life. So in this final part, I'm going to give you a modern Babylon blueprint. Simple, realistic, repeatable, and if you follow it, even imperfectly, you'll start building the kind of financial calm most people never reach. Let's call it the Babylon Plan. Not for the next decade, not for some perfect version of you, for this week, for your real life. Step 1, pay yourself first. Now I'm going to say this in a way that sounds almost too practical. The moment money comes in. Before it gets touched by bills, before it gets touched by impulse, before it gets touched by convenience, you move a portion to a separate place, a place you don't casually spend from. You're creating a boundary. Because if money has no boundary, it will vanish. And if you're thinking, I can't do a tenth right now, that's okay. Start with what you can do consistently, even if it's small, because the book isn't worshiping a number, it's building a habit. The habit is the engine. Here's a line that could change how you see saving. Saving is not what you do with leftover money. Saving is what you do to create leftover money. That's the whole shift. So start with an amount that doesn't break you, but make it non-negotiable. You're not doing this because you're rich. You're doing this because you're building a future. Step 2. Control your spending with a calm system. Not guilt, not shame, not fear. Awareness. Here's a tool that feels very Babylon. Divide your spending into 2 categories: necessary expenses and desired expenses. Necessary expenses keep your life stable. Desired expenses make your life enjoyable. Neither one is evil. But here's the Babylon key. Your desires must not outrun your future. So pick a simple rule. One rule you can remember. Something like, if I want something over a certain amount, I wait 24 hours. Or I don't buy it unless I can buy it twice. Or I set one day a week as a no-spend day. Choose one and let it protect you from your worst financial enemy, impulse. Because impulse isn't just about wanting stuff. Impulse is what happens when you're tired, when you're stressed, you're lonely, when you're trying to fix a feeling with a purchase. And Babylon would say, your money should not be used to medicate your emotions. Your money should be used to build your freedom. Step 3. Give your savings a job. This is where most people feel intimidated, so let's keep it grounded. You don't need to be a finance genius. You need to be a wise owner. A wise owner does 3 things. They protect the principal, they avoid what they don't understand, they grow steadily. That's it. In modern terms, giving money a job can look like building an emergency cushion first, because emergencies don't ask permission. And having even a small buffer changes the way you breathe. Then it can look like long-term, boring, reasonable growth, not chasing miracles, building a machine. And I want to say this carefully. If someone promises you fast, guaranteed returns, Babylon would tell you to step back. Because real wealth doesn't need to shout. Real wealth doesn't pressure you. Real wealth doesn't rush you. Step 4, protect what you build. This is one of the strongest lessons of the book, and it's more relevant today than ever. Because today, temptation is everywhere. Scams can look professional. Bad deals can look exciting. Risk can look like confidence. So here are a few Babylon protection questions you can use anytime you're about to do something with money. How exactly does this make money? If it goes wrong, what do I lose? Do I understand it well enough to explain it to someone else? Am I making this decision calmly or emotionally? If you can't answer those questions, it's not time. Step 5, increase your earning power. This is the part people underestimate because it's not dramatic. But Babylon is obsessed with this idea. Your ability to earn is an asset, and you can upgrade it. How? You can learn a skill that pays more. You can become more valuable at your job. You can build something on the side. You can improve communication, sales, design, tech, management, writing, leadership, whatever fits your life. But the principle is the same. A person who grows their skills grows their options. And options are freedom. Now I want to give you a practical version of this plan you can start today. A 7-day Babylon reset. Not perfect, just real. Day 1. Track every dollar you spend for one day. Not forever, just one day. Because awareness is step 1. Most people don't have a money problem. They have a visibility problem. Day 2. Set your pay yourself first system. Automatic if possible. Even if it's small. Even if it's uncomfortable. Because you're teaching your future that you matter. Day 3. Pick one expense to reduce. Just one. A subscription you don't use. A habit that leaks money. A convenience you can replace, not to suffer, to regain control. Day 4. Create a tiny emergency buffer, even if it's one small milestone. Because the first goal isn't becoming rich. The first goal is stopping panic. Day 5. List your debts if you have them. No drama, just truth. Then, choose a repayment rhythm that you can actually maintain. Steady beats perfect. Day 6. Learn one thing that increases your earning power, a free lesson, a tutorial, a certification path, a portfolio piece, a resume upgrade. One step. Because Babylon wealth is built by momentum. Day 7. Review the week. And they ask one question, what worked? Then repeat what worked. That's how you build your personal system. Now, let's summarize the entire book in a way that sticks. If you remember only a handful of lines, remember these. First, a part of all you earn is yours to keep. Say it again, quietly. A part of all I earn is mine to keep. That's the seed. Second, your lifestyle will always try to rise to meet your income. So you must decide who wins, your comfort today or your freedom tomorrow. And you don't have to choose misery. You just have to choose control. Third, money grows when it's guided by wisdom, and money disappears when it's guided by fantasy. Fourth, protection matters. If you build wealth once, but lose it to a bad deal, you're back at the beginning. So don't gamble with your foundation. Fifth, your skills are your leverage. Your knowledge is your protection. Your character is your wealth multiplier. Now, I want to make this personal. Because a lot of people hear money advice and think it's cold, like it's only about numbers. But money is emotional. Money affects your relationships, your stress levels, your health, your confidence, your choices. So when this book teaches wealth, it's really teaching something deeper. It's teaching peace. Imagine waking up and not feeling that weight in your chest, not feeling like you're behind before the day even starts. Imagine your car breaks down and you handle it without panic. Imagine you can help your family without hurting yourself. Imagine you can say no to a job you hate because you have margin. That's what Babylon is selling. Not gold coins, freedom. And here's the most powerful point. Babylon doesn't ask you to become a different person overnight. It asks you to become a consistent person. Because consistency creates identity, and identity creates outcomes. So if you're listening right now and you've made mistakes, welcome to the human race. Babylon is full of people who made mistakes. The difference is, they chose to stop repeating them. You don't need a perfect past. You need a clear next step. And you can take that step today. Now let me give you one final story, modern and simple. Two people earn the same amount. Person A spends everything and tells themselves they'll start later. Person B saves a small portion and does it automatically. At first, Person A looks like they're winning. New stuff, more comfort, no restrictions. Person B looks boring. But then time passes, Person A gets hit with an emergency. And it becomes panic. Person B gets hit with an emergency. And it becomes a problem, not a crisis. That difference right there, that's what wealth is. Not showing off, not status, stability. So as we close, I want to challenge you in the spirit of Babylon. Choose one principle from this episode, not all of them, just one. And live it for 30 days. One principle, 30 days. Because you don't change your life with knowledge. You change your life with practice. And if you want to make it simple, choose the first one. Pay yourself first. Because that single habit is the seed that grows into every other habit. All right. If this episode helped you, I want you to do two things. First, leave a comment with this sentence: my first Babylon habit will be, and then finish it. It can be small, it can be simple, but write it down. Because when you name your habit, you make it real. Second, share this episode with someone you care about, not to judge them, not to lecture them, but to give them something powerful. Because money stress is one of the most silent struggles people carry. And a simple principle can change a family line. And if you enjoyed this warm, story-driven style of learning, subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep breaking down timeless books like this in a way that feels human, practical, and easy to follow. Remember, the purpose of money is not to impress people. The purpose of money is to give you choices. And choices are freedom. Thank you for spending this time with me. Now go take one Babylon step, even a small one. Because a small step repeated becomes a new life.